Imagine living a life full of adventure. You're young, you're active, and your body can do anything you ask of it. You climb mountains, you travel, you say yes to every opportunity. The future isn't just some vague idea. It's a wide-open landscape you're running toward with open arms. This was the world that a bright, energetic young woman, let's call her Alara, lived in. Her identity was her activity, her strength, her energy. Then, one day, the colors started to fade. It wasn't a sudden storm, but more like a slow, creeping fog. It started with a fatigue she couldn't sleep off, a weird ache with no source, a brain fog that made simple tasks feel impossible. Doctors were stumped. Tests came back clean. Well-meaning friends and family would say things like, maybe you just need a rest, or you're probably just stressed. But Alara knew. She knew deep in her bones that something was seriously wrong. That vibrant, wide-open landscape of her future began to shrink. First, it was the size of her apartment, then her bedroom, then just her bed. The world of hiking boots and plane tickets was replaced by a world of sterile doctors' offices, endless online research, and a body that had become a prison. The diagnosis, when it finally came, had a name: chronic illness. Two words that erased everything she thought she was. Her struggle was almost completely invisible. On the rare days she had the energy to go out, she looked fine, which brought its own special kind of pain. There's a loneliness that comes from fighting a battle no one else can even see. The frustration was a constant, simmering anger at her body for betraying her, and at the world for just moving on while hers had ground to a halt. In her darkest moments, she confessed a heartbreaking wish. I never thought that I would be spending years not able to function properly and have a normal life, she later wrote. Sometimes I wish that I could just have a vacation from the sickness. Think about that for a second. Not a vacation to a sunny beach, but a vacation from her own body. That's the kind of despair we're talking about. Every morning was a gamble. Would today be a day she could shower on her own? Or would it be a day when gravity itself felt like a crushing weight pinning her to the mattress? She grieved for the life she'd lost, for the person she used to be. The active, adventurous woman felt like a ghost haunting her, a constant reminder of everything that was gone. The isolation was deep, a canyon separating her from her healthy friends whose lives were moving forward with new jobs, new relationships, and new adventures. The turning point for Alara wasn't a miracle cure. It wasn't a magic pill. It was something quieter, but so much more powerful. It was a single sentence typed late at night into a search engine that led her to an online forum for people with her condition. As she read their posts, a flicker of recognition sparked in the dark. She saw her own frustrations, her fears, and her tiny bits of hope mirrored back at her. She wasn't alone. She hadn't been stranded on a deserted island. She just found a whole continent of people who got it. She started to write. At first, just for herself, pouring out the grief and anger into a journal. But then, she started sharing her words on the forum. She wrote about the small victories nobody else saw, like making it to the kitchen for a glass of water. She wrote about the crushing disappointment of a promising treatment that didn't work. She wrote about what it's really like to live with a burden no one can see. And something incredible happened. People responded. Hundreds of them. They all said, "Me too." That connection became her lifeline. Sharing her story began to change her relationship with her illness. It wasn't just her enemy anymore. It became her teacher. It taught her a new kind of strength, one that isn't measured in miles run or mountains climbed, but in the courage to just face another day. It taught her a profound empathy for the hidden battles others might be fighting. This led to her new purpose. She thought about the years she spent feeling totally alone, and she decided to gather everything she was learning. There are a lot more people who have the same questions and the same struggles, she realized. So she started a new, difficult journey, writing a book. Not a book about a cure, but a book about coping. A book about finding meaning when your life gets turned upside down, with the goal of encouraging them to hold on and to have hope and to keep fighting. Today, Alara's life isn't the one she planned. It's still a daily negotiation with her body. There are good days and bad days. But she's no longer a prisoner. She has found a different kind of adventure, one of connection, purpose, and helping others on the same path. Her journey shows us that sometimes the real healing isn't about fixing the body, but about mending the spirit through community. She shows us that even when your world shrinks to the size of a single room, your impact can still be limitless. Transition. Alara's story is a powerful lesson in adapting to a challenge that was forced on her. But that same resilience can be found in the journey of a man who had to face a mountain he built himself, a mountain made of bad decisions and one catastrophic moment that changed everything. For some people, the fall isn't a slow fade, it's a free fall. Nathan Harmon's youth was a battlefield. He struggled with everything from eating disorders and addiction to self-harm, all while navigating the wreckage of his parents' divorce. He was lost in a forest of pain, and his choices were just desperate attempts to find a way out. He was a young man with a bright future, but he was also teetering on the edge of a cliff. The world of addiction narrows your vision. The only thing that matters is the next escape. Consequences feel abstract, like something that might happen a million miles away. On July 17, 2009, that abstract future crashed into the present. Nathan chose to get behind the wheel of a car while under the influence. In a split second, there was the sickening sound of impact, shattering glass, and then a deafening silence. The accident was catastrophic. His passenger, a young woman named Priscilla Owens, lost her life. In an instant, Nathan's life, and so many others, were irrevocably broken. The weight of his actions was absolute. He was no longer just a kid struggling with his demons. He was the cause of an unbearable tragedy. At 23 years old, instead of a college diploma, he was given a 15-year prison sentence for reckless vehicular manslaughter. The prison bars were a physical symbol of the prison of guilt he'd now live in for the rest of his life. Just imagine that moment. The crushing finality. The knowledge that a choice you made ended a life. Despair isn't a strong enough word. It's a black hole that swallows all light. In that place, you'd expect hatred. Hatred from the victim's family, from the community, and an all-consuming self-hatred. And for a while, that was his reality. But then came the turning point. A moment so profound, so completely unexpected, it changed everything. He had to face Priscilla's family. He braced himself for their anger, for their hatred, for everything he knew he deserved. But they offered him something else. They offered him forgiveness. It was a choice that defies logic, that goes against the natural order of grief and anger. It was an act of almost superhuman grace. Nathan himself describes it with awe. I knew the struggles, my hurts, the poor decisions, the brokenness. And here's this family finding the craziest courage I've ever seen in my life. They picked love over hate to forgive. This forgiveness didn't let him off the hook. In fact, it did the opposite. It placed a new, heavier weight on him, the weight of their grace. He had been shown a compassion he didn't earn and didn't deserve, and he knew he couldn't let it go to waste. That single act of love from the people he had hurt the most became the catalyst for a massive transformation. It was the moment Nathan Harmon decided that the man who went into prison would not be the man who came out. Prison became his training ground. Stripped of everything, he began the grueling work of rebuilding himself from the inside out. He faced every single demon he'd been running from. He got sober. He got clean. He started reading, learning, and doing the painful work of self-reflection. He had taken a life, and he knew he had to spend the rest of his own honoring the one that was lost. He couldn't change the past, but he could change his future, and maybe the future of others. When Nathan was released, he wasn't just a former inmate. He was a man on a mission. He had been to the deepest, darkest pit of despair, a pit he had dug himself, and he'd found a way out through the grace of others. He knew he had to tell a story. With the full support of the Owens family, he began to speak. He now travels the country, sharing his story with thousands of young people. He stands on stage and speaks with a raw, unfiltered honesty that's impossible to ignore. He talks about addiction, suicide, and the pain so many young people carry in silence. He connects with them because he's not talking theory. He's talking from experience. He knows their struggles because they were his. His message is one of profound hope, grounded in the brutal reality of personal responsibility. He doesn't sugarcoat his mistakes. He owns them completely, and in doing so, he gives others permission to own theirs. He tells them their past doesn't have to define their future. He leaves them with a powerful, resounding message. Your life and voice have the ability to overcome every obstacle and every situation. Nathan Harmon's journey is a stark and powerful testament to the possibility of redemption. It shows that even from the most tragic mistakes, a life of purpose can be born. It proves the incredible power of forgiveness and shows that the lowest point in a person's life doesn't have to be the end. It could be a new beginning. Nathan's journey shows us the power of the human spirit to rebuild after self-destruction. But what happens when that destruction comes from the outside, in a violent moment that rips your physical identity away? That same story of resilience is echoed in Janine Shepherd's journey with a body that was broken, but a spirit that refused to be. The air was Janine Shepherd's kingdom. As an elite cross-country skier training for the Olympics, her body was a finely tuned instrument, a source of power, pride, and identity. Life was a race toward a golden horizon. She was defined by her strength, her endurance, her ability to push her body to its absolute limits. Then, on a beautiful day in 1986, while on a training bike ride in Australia, her kingdom crumbled. A speeding truck slammed into her, and her world shattered. The list of her injuries was devastating. A broken neck, a broken back, fractured ribs, a broken collarbone. She had massive internal injuries and lost nearly all the blood in her body. By all accounts, she shouldn't have made it. For 10 days, she hovered between life and death. She later described looking down at her own broken body, so ravaged she didn't want to go back to it. But something, maybe her father's silent prayer as he held her hand, tethered her to this world. She survived, but the life she knew did not. She woke up in a spinal ward, the place where everyone's worst nightmares come true. The doctors delivered the verdict, a cold summary that erased her entire identity. The damage was permanent. She was a partial paraplegic. They told her she'd be in a wheelchair for the rest of her life. They told her she would never have children. They told her that the life she had worked for, the Olympic dreams, the very essence of who she was gone. The grief was an ocean, and she was drowning in it. Imagine being told that the one thing that defines you is gone forever. When she finally went home from the hospital, the reality of her new life crashed down. Every curb was a mountain. Every staircase was a cruel joke. The simplest tasks were now monumental efforts. She fell into a deep depression. There were days she couldn't get out of bed, when the emotional pain was so much worse than the physical. She shared a moment of total despair in her memoir. She recalled, "I wanted my life back. I wanted to put my running shoes on and run out the door, but I couldn't. There were days when I didn't want to get out of bed. My mom's sitting on the bed, and we were both crying, and she said, I wonder if life will ever be good again." In that moment, with tears streaming down their faces, something shifted. Her mother's question, born from despair, just hung in the air. I wonder if life will ever be good again. It was a question that demanded an answer. And deep in her soul, a tiny, defiant spark ignited. Janine had lost the use of her legs, but not her will. Her body was broken, but as she would soon realize, a broken body is not a broken person. The turning point came from the sky. As she sat in her wheelchair, watching the world go by, she saw a small airplane carving a path above her. In that moment, a wild, audacious thought took root. "That's it," she declared. "If I can't walk, I'll fly." It was a crazy idea. She was a paraplegic who had just relearned how to sit up. But it was the first thing since the accident that offered her a glimpse of freedom. Her parents were scared to death, but they saw the light return to her eyes and couldn't say no. So began the next chapter of her impossible journey. She learned to fly. Think of the courage that took to trust your broken body in a tiny machine thousands of feet in the air. But she did it. Within a year of leaving the spinal ward, she had her pilot's license. But she didn't stop there. She got her commercial license, then her instructor rating. And then, in the ultimate act of defiance, She became a trained aerobatics instructor, teaching others how to dance in the sky. The woman told she would never walk again was doing barrel rolls in the clouds. She didn't just learn to fly a plane, she learned to fly in life. She went on to defy every single one of the doctor's predictions. She learned to walk again. She became a mother to 3 children. She became a best-selling author and the first female director of the Civil Aviation Safety Authority in Australia. Janine Shepherd's story is a breathtaking example of what it means to redefine your limits. She teaches us that we are not our bodies or our circumstances. Our true self, our defiant human spirit, is so much more powerful. Her message is clear. We are not our bodies. Our real strength comes from somewhere much deeper, our defiant human spirit. Once we realize that, we are unstoppable. Her journey makes us ask ourselves, when our life's plan is shattered, do we stay in the wreckage? Or do we look up at the sky and find a new way to fly? 3 stories, 3 different mountains, an invisible illness, a tragic mistake, a violent accident. Alara, Nathan, and Janine. Their paths were forged in pain and loss. Yet, their stories don't end in despair. They end in hope. What they show us is that resilience isn't about avoiding suffering. It's about moving through it. It's the courage to find connection when you feel most alone. It's the strength to accept grace when you feel you least deserve it. It's the audacity to dream of flying when you're told you'll never walk again. Each of them found a turning point, a moment where they chose to redefine their circumstances instead of being defined by them. They discovered that from the deepest wounds, a new purpose can grow, and that sharing their story could be a light for others lost in their own darkness. The human spirit can endure so much more than we think. These journeys prove that no matter how dark the night gets, no matter how broken we feel, there's always a path forward. It may not be the path we planned, but it can lead somewhere full of meaning, purpose, and incredible strength. If these stories inspired you, please share this video with someone who might need to hear a message of hope today. And we would be honored if you would share a part of your own story of resilience in the comments below. This is a place of support, and your journey, your struggles, and your triumphs matter. Your story could be the one that someone else needs to hear. Finally, if you want to see more content that celebrates the strength of the human spirit, please subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Thank you for watching.